you place inside the package that says, please find enclosed 2 test tubes. So on the itemized list of contents, you just have to list the number and type and volume of the primaries. You want to make sure that all the components are in good condition. If you're shipping a category A and you're using a category A package, you must use it in the way it was validated and certified. So you cannot mix and match components. You can't replace parts. It has to be used exactly as it was originally validated and certified in. And then probably of all of the advice I could give you, the number one most important piece of advice, I'm going to put a big star around this, is that you want to make sure that the outer packaging, so that outer box, is free from any external contamination. And so what that means is, in general, you should not bring the outer packaging into the laboratory. So typically what you do is you prepare your primaries, you disinfect them, you place them inside your secondary, you prepare your secondary, you seal your secondary, and then you disinfect the outside of that secondary. Then you remove your gloves, you remove your lab coat, your PPE, and you take the secondary out of the lab, and then you do all the you do the final packaging, the final assembly, the marking, the labeling, and the documentation. You do that in the office where there's no contamination. And then that's where you finish your final packing process. So I want to talk, just give you a quick demonstration about disinfection, right? So when you disinfect your primaries and secondaries, I'm going to stop sharing so you can see this video more clearly. And my hope is you can see my screen. You can see me really clear. So one of the things typically when people do disinfection, they often will use, say, a spray bottle like this. But there is one challenge with using a spray bottle, and I want to do just a quick demonstration here. So let me see if I can bring my camera around. So what I've done right here is I have taken a bunch of like little pieces of paper towel, and I've torn those little pieces up. And I want you to imagine that these little bits and pieces that we see here are viruses that are contaminating the outside of my container. So I have my spray bottle right here. And so I'm going to take my spray bottle and I'm going to spray the outside of my container, and I'm going to disinfect it. So watch what happens when I use my spray bottle. All right. Did you see what happened? As soon as I squeezed that spray bottle, all of those particles flew up into the air. And so when you're using a spray bottle, particularly when that spray bottle is a jet stream like that is, you'll notice a lot of my viruses ended up on the ground by the table right down there. And so what ends up happening when you use a spray bottle is you can inadvertently create an aerosol and spray and send those viruses up into the air, and they can land and settle on surfaces and not be disinfected. And so I generally try to avoid spray bottles for that process. So what are some alternatives? So one alternative is you can take your disinfectant. You see, let's say I have a wipe. So I've got a paper towel. So I'm going to take my spray bottle and I can get my paper towel nice and wet. So you see my paper towel is nice and wet. And then I can take my packaging. So let's say this is my secondary packaging here. So I can take and I can use my I've soaked my paper towel with the disinfectant, and then I can wipe down all the surfaces of the secondary container. So that's one way that you can disinfect it. That method is preferred. I would prefer that you use a wipe rather than a spray bottle. So like if I just take this and I spray you see me spraying the outside of the container, what that's doing is every time that spray hits that container, it's splashing and it's sending, perhaps I'm sending aerosolized pathogens all over the laboratory. and on everything. And so rather than spray the container, don't spray the container, spray the absorbent towel and then wipe down. So you can do a wipe of the secondary. So that is one way. There's even a better way, and let me show you a better way of doing a disinfectant. So this is a little more difficult to do, but one of the things you can do is what I have here. Let's see if I can get my camera on this. So what I have is this is, let's say, bleach. I have my bleach solution and I have it in just a bucket. So in this case, I have my bucket and I've filled it with bleach. So I have like maybe a 10% bleach, or I guess in Africa, it would probably be a 20% Jik solution. So I've got my disinfectant here, and then I can take my containers. Here's my secondary, and I have my secondary. I've got it nice and sealed. And then what I can do is I can submerge that into the disinfectant. And when I submerge it, right away, I can look for bubbles. And if there are any bubbles coming from the secondary, then I know that my secondary is not leak proof. And so by using a submersion method for my disinfectant, I accomplish two things at once. Number one is I can disinfect the outside of the container, and I can do it in a very comprehensive way. So by submerging it, I know that I've hit all the surfaces of the secondary. And then the second thing I accomplish by using the submersion method is by looking for bubbles, I can ensure that I have a watertight, leak-proof seal. So I want to talk a little bit about using, say, a Ziploc bag. So here I have some Ziploc bags. And I grabbed these bags just out of my cupboard. So these are standard zip bags that you can just buy in the store. And so what I'm going to do is let's assume I'm using these as my secondary. And let's say I have a test tube or something. Let me see if I can find a test tube here. So let's say this is my primary. So I'm going to place my primary inside the secondary. And I'm going to leave some air in here and I'm going to seal it up. So now I've got a pretty good seal here. So now I'm going to see, I want to find out if this is, I'm going to disinfect it. So I'm going to submerge it. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for any bubbles to come up. Now, sometimes you'll often see this, and let's see if I can bring this up. So if you look here, do you guys see the bubbles coming out? Yeah, you can see some bubbles coming up over here too. So this is pretty common with a Ziploc bag that you buy off the shelf. These particularly, they leak. The seals do not form watertight seals. So you're going to get some, particularly in the corners here, you can see I've got some bubbles coming up. So this is pretty common. I would say these type of bags, Ziploc bags, actually are not leak proof. Even though, you got a perfect seal on it, they're not leak proof. Some bags you can get better quality bags. So this is a little higher quality we have here. This one is what we call a freezer bag. It actually has it's got double kind of seals on the top. So if I get a really good seal here, sometimes these are pretty good. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have a problem here because I've got too much water. But actually, these have much fewer bubbles. There's still, I can see a few bubbles coming out of the corner. So it doesn't leak nearly as much, but these still, when they do they use a hot wire to kind of melt the plastic together here, and that kind of forms a seal. But particularly in the corner where the seals are, those are not perfect seals, and so you can still get some leakage out of the corner. They do make specialty kind of bags for laboratories. Those types of bags I would recommend if you can get them, but don't rely necessarily on bags like this to be able to provide watertight or leak-proof seals. All right, any questions?
Yes, question. You have a question in the chat box.
Okay, good. So I'm going to move this back up. Fix my camera. Okay. So let me now my desk is all wet. So let me look, I'll look in the chat box for any questions. So very good question. Can we reuse either category A or B packaging? Excellent question. And I'm going to put that question on hold because the answers are actually in the slides. We're going to discuss that question a little bit detail a little bit later. But the short answer is yes, you can reuse both category A and you can reuse category B. However, if you do reuse them, there are some considerations. You want to make sure that any irrelevant marks and labels have been removed. You also want to make sure that the package is still in good condition. All the packaging, all the components are in good condition. And you also want to make sure that it's been disinfected and decontaminated and it is safe to reuse. All of the components are free from contamination. All right. Here are some additional considerations for packing refrigerated or frozen samples. I want to point out a few things here. First of all, we don't want to use wet ice. And one of the reasons why is because wet ice will melt and it can pick up contamination from materials inside the package and it can transport it because it's liquid. Typically, we don't use wet ice. So rather than wet ice, using, say, a gel pack or something of that nature is better than wet ice. And then you want to make sure that we don't use any dry ice. This is important. Do not place dry ice inside a secondary or primary. What will happen if you put dry ice inside of a secondary is the dry ice will, gas will be released and that gas will cause the secondary to explode. So for example, in this particular case, if you put dry ice in here inside this jar, that jar will explode. So you basically created a bomb. So do not place dry ice inside the secondary packaging. That's really important. Also, you use interior support. So I want to show you what they've done on this particular package. So on this particular package, you have your secondary here, and they've taken a simple piece of cardboard. They've folded the cardboard, they've cut out the middle and folded the middle the other way. And what you end up with is you end up with this kind of, it's like a holder. So it holds the container in place. That secondary cannot move around. It's locked in place. And you have all this space to place your dry ice. What you don't want to do is just place the secondary and then use the dry ice as support, because the dry ice is going to sublimate. It's going to be released into the atmosphere. It's going to turn to a gas. And then what's going to happen is after the dry ice is gone, that secondary will be bouncing around inside the package, and that is not a good condition. So one of the things I always do with my packages after I've got them all assembled is I'll give it a shake. And if I hear anything moving around or rattling inside, then it's probably not been prepared correctly. So again, another reminder especially with dry ice is the packaging must allow the release of the gas. So if it does not release gas, that gas will build up pressure and can cause an explosion. One other thing to note with dry ice is if you have less than 2.5 kilograms, so small amounts of dry ice, less than 2.5 kilograms, is not considered regulated. So if you have less than 2.5 kilograms, you don't have to report it. You don't have to mark and label it. It's not considered, it's accepted from the regulations. And then just another rule of thumb is it's about 6 pounds of dry ice for every 24 hours. So about 2.5 kilograms will last you 24 hours. So if you need more than 24 hours, let's say you need 48 hours, you'd put 5 kilograms of dry ice, and you'd need at least 7.5 or 8 kilograms of dry ice to go 72 hours. So roughly speaking, a lot depends, of course, on how thick the cool box is. So if it's got a really good thick styrofoam box with really good insulation, that CO2, the carbon dioxide dry ice will last a lot longer. But if you have a very thin cool box, then it's going to take a lot more dry ice. So you probably need more like 5 kilograms for 24 hours if it's got a thin wall, and you're going to need 2.5 kilograms for 24 hours if it's got a thick wall. All right. Are there any questions on this? And then if there are questions, pass them forward on a note and get those questions in the chat box. And I'm going to actually tackle the next question. That question that was asked earlier is, can packaging be reused? So I'm going to kind of skip this discussion because I've already kind of given the answers. But so here are some things to consider when reusing packages. So right here, these are the factors on the left that you want to consider or be aware of. And then on the right are mitigation, ways that we can mitigate or reduce the risk for those factors. So for example, one of the factors to consider for reuse is that the package could be damaged and unable to perform its containment function. So what are you going to do? Well, the package should be in good condition. Don't reuse damaged packaging. That's the mitigation. Or replace damaged components with approved, certified, validated, the same component if it's category A. And then another factor, for example, there could be internal or external contamination. So make sure you decontaminate and disinfect all of the components. So those are the critical things to think about for reuse. And then, all right, so let's do a quick true false. So I'm gonna just kind of go through these questions really quick, and I want you guys to hold up your hands, true or false. All right, so here's the first question. True or false, UN 2900 must be in a class 6.2 UN specification marked package. So why don't you get me a count? How many people say true? How many people say false?
Sorry, there was a break in connection. So please, could you please go back a bit?
Okay, right here.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So basically, these are the critical. Here are the things that you have to worry about if you're going to reuse a package. So these are the critical kind of factors that influence the risk of reusing packaging. And so these are the risk factors on the left, and then on the right are mitigation. So ways that you could overcome or address the risk of reusing packages. And so I'll just have you guys read through those.
Will you please do it in slideshow?
Oh, is it not being shown?
Not in slideshow.
Oh, let me see. Let me see what's sharing. Yeah, it should be shown. Can you see the table?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So yeah, essentially on the left column is factors that influence the risk of reusing packaging. Because if you're going to reuse a package, there are risks. So what are those risks? Risks of contamination, risks and other things. And on the left are the factors that kind of influence that risk. And on the right are factors that we can or ways that we can mitigate the risk that are presented by those things. All right. So let's go to this true or false question. So what do you guys think? True or false? UN 2900 must be in a class 6.2 UN specification mark package. So go ahead and give me a count. How many people say true? How many people say false?
True, true.
Yeah, how many people say true?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Uh-oh, looks like I lost you again. Let's see, it's my phone. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Are we did I lose you? I think I lost all of you. Everyone's gone. Hmm.
Hello, Eric.
Hi, we lost your connection, I think.
Yes, we had internet connection issue, so sorry about that.
Oh, well, I'm just glad, I'm glad we got you back.
Okay.
All right, so I think we were doing just a review exercise. So let me share my screen. Let's see, here it is. All right, so here's the question again, true or false? UN 2900 must be in a class 6.2 UN specification marked package. And tell me how many say true and how many say false.
True 14. True 14. No. False 0.
0 false, and everyone says true. All right, so let's look at the answer. That is true. Okay, good. All right, let's try another one. UN 3373, same question. UN 3373 must be in a class 6.2 UN specification marked package. True or false? So tell me how many people say true, how many people say false?
True? Anybody? Everybody is saying false.
Everyone says false. All right, good. We're on a roll. So that is false. However, I want to point out that UN specification marking is allowed. So you can use UN specification mark package for your category B, but it is not required. All right. All right, here's another question. When using a class 6.2 UN specification packaging for category A, the package must be used in the way it was tested and certified by the manufacturer, including all the original components, no mixing or matching, alternate secondary containers, different configurations, etc. Is that true or false?
Everybody is saying true.
Everyone says it's true. Okay, you guys are correct. It is true. All right. What about the same question? So exact same question, but we've changed it to from category A to category B. So when you use a 6.2 UN specification mark packaging for category B, which you're allowed to use it, the package must be used in the way it was tested and certified by the manufacturer. No mixing, matching, alternate secondary containers, different configurations, etc. So how many true, how many false? Yep, everyone says false. So that is correct. So since the UN specification and certification is not required for category B, there is no need for it to be used in the same way it was tested, as long as all the components are there, as long as you have a primary, a secondary absorbent, and so forth. All right. So are there any questions about package, packaging, or packing questions? So let's move on. So let's talk about step 5, which is marking and labeling. And then once we finish with this, hopefully this will take about 10-15 minutes. Then after we finish this section, we can go to the tea break. Hopefully they'll have the tea break ready by then. So just a quick overview of marking and labeling. So there are two kinds of things that we talk about. One is marking. So marking is generally when we use the term marking, what we mean by that are stuff that you, the shipper, mark on the outside of the package. So the mark could be on a sticky, like on a sticker that you put on the package, or it could be something you handwrite. So for example, so that's marking. Labeling, these are the labels are kind of these stickers that you affix to the outside of the package. And so when we talk about marking, so what markings are, they tell us about the contents of the package, the nature of the hazard, and then also the applicable packaging standards. So for example, the UN specification mark, that's an actual, it's a mark, but it's a mark that's put on there by the manufacturer, not by the shipper. So those are marks. And then labels, there's actually two types of labels. We have what are called hazard labels, and you can recognize a hazard label by this diamond shape. So the hazard label has this, what we call a diamond on point shape. So that is a hazard label. And then we have what are called handling labels. So the handling labels are usually either square or rectangle. So this is a handling label here, and we have a handling label and a handling label. Let's talk about which marks and labels need to be on the outside of the package. So there are essentially 6 critical marks and labels that go on the outside of the package. So the first one is the address of the shipper. That is a mark. The address of the consignee. That is a mark. You have to have the name and telephone number of a person responsible. That is also a mark. The applicable hazard label. So that's a label for each dangerous good. So here we have a label. We can see here, that's the label. That is the label right there. That indicates a category A infectious substance. And then you have to have a proper shipping name. So that's a mark. You have to mark the proper shipping name for each dangerous good. And the UN identification number, that is also a mark. Typically for an infectious substance package, there's going to be a label, a hazard label. So that's the hazard label. And then you'll notice there is or orientation label. So this orientation label is typically found on most dangerous goods packages. It's pre-printed, but I would say this label is only required if you have more, so greater than 50 milliliters of a liquid. So if you have more than 50 milliliters, greater than 50 milliliters of liquid, you're required to have these orientation arrow labels on opposite sides. So there would be one on this side. There would also be one on this side, on the back side. So those are typically pre-printed. Another thing to note with labels, our labels have specific size, shape, and color. So the size, the shape, the color has to be exactly as it's designated in the regulations. And then for dry ice and only dry ice, that's the only requirement where you have to put the quantity. So the quantity of the dry ice goes on the outside of the package. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. So here's a few things to note so this is what a typical package looks like for category A. So on here, we have the 6 things that have to be marked on the outside of the package. We have, so if you recall, the 6 things are the first. So here's number 1 is the address of the shipper. So there's this is the address of the shipper. So that's number 1. And then here's number 2, that is the address of the receiver. So that's number 2. We have number 3, we have the proper shipping name. There's number 3. And we have the UN ID number. That's number 4. Then we have to have the hazard labels. So, here's the proper shipping name for the dry ice, number 3, and the UN ID number, that's number 4. And then we have to have the hazard label, that's number 5. So there's the hazard label for each dangerous good. So this is the hazard label right here. This is the hazard label for category A. This is the hazard label for dry ice. All right. And then we have number 7 right here. That's number 7. That is the weight of the dry ice. So we're missing number 6. So what is 6? What are we missing here? Can anyone tell me what I'm missing? So sorry, I couldn't hear, but maybe what are they saying? All right, we have the orientation. There's the orientation label, but remember the orientation label, that's optional if it's less than 50 milliliters. What am I missing? All right, I'm going to clear this. So let's go back to the previous one. So what am I missing here? So look through this list. And what am I missing from this list from here? So what we're missing is right here. I'll show you. Number 3, we're missing the name and telephone number of a person responsible. So as we look, so this is what I forgot to put on here, is I would need to have, say, so I'd have to have, say, whoops, let me do my text. Let's do it. And let's see, let's do the font size 18. Okay, so I'd have to have something like person responsible, Eric Cook, and then let's see, 3, 4, 2, 6, 7, 5, 9, 0, 0, 3. All right, so I would have to have that somewhere on the package. A name and a telephone number, and you'll notice I have put I've listed person responsible. So if you look here, we actually have Stan Sedgwick, we have a name, we also have another name, Eric Cook, but which one is responsible for the package? We don't know if it's Stan or if it's Eric. So in this case, the person responsible is Eric, who is the receiver. In this case, the receiver is responsible, but I have to identify which person is responsible. So I need to write person responsible and a name and phone number. All right. So let me clear these. All right. So let's do a class exercise. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a scenario, and Abiodun and Easter, can you make sure each table has a flip chart? So I want to have each table have a nice big flip chart paper. And what I want you to do is on your flip chart is I want you to draw like a box like this. So on the flip chart, I want you to draw a nice big box. Hopefully, you have some markers to make it clear. And then what I want you to do is so using the blank picture of a box, I want you to mark and label the package based on the following scenario. So here's the scenario. Your package contains frozen plasma from a confirmed HIV positive human. The plasma must remain frozen, so 5 kilograms of dry ice is present in the package. So you have both dry ice and you have an infectious substance in the package. So what I want you to do is I want you to mark and label this package appropriately. Oh, I wanted to point out one thing when I go back on the labels, just so you know. This is the hazard label that is applicable for category A. And this is it's called a mark. It's not actually a hazard label, but we'll treat it like a label. It's the same concept as a label. This is the mark that is required for category B. So what I'd like to do is have each table or each group do pretend like you are filling out. So what I want you to do is draw a package on your paperwork, on your flip chart, and then I want you to show me how it would look. So put all the marks, labels, and everything on it as would be necessary. So here's your scenario. I'll give you let's say 10 minutes to do this. And then actually, you know what, Abiodun, since it is time for the break, maybe we let people go. And then when they come back from the break, it's 11 o'clock now. So when they come back at 11:30, have them complete this exercise, and then we'll go through the answers together as a group. Does that sound good?
Yes, it does.
All right. So let's try our tea break now. Let's take let's limit it to 30 minutes maximum. So please come back at 11:30. And then when you come back, I want you to do this scenario. And then perhaps I'd like to see a picture send me a picture, take a picture of each of the flip charts. And then what I'd like to do is I'm going to take each person's picture. I want you to post those pictures in the chat box, and then I'm going to bring the picture up on the screen and we're going to review each one together as a group. Does that sound good?
Yes, it does.
Okay, go ahead and take a break, and we'll see you back in 30 minutes. We're starting again 11:30. And Biodin, can I steal you for just a minute while they're leaving? So Biodin, can I grab you for a sec? Durajai?
Yeah.
So can you do me a favor? When they do this scenario, what I want you to do is use your phone camera and take a picture of each of their completed scenarios once they finish it. So what they're going to do is they're going to draw a box that looks like this, and then they're going to mark and label that box. I want you to take a picture of that and then post those pictures in the chat, upload them in the chat, and then I'm going to put a picture up on the screen, and then we're gonna work on each. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. So we're going for a tea break now.
If they want to finish, yeah, it's fine. If they want to finish the scenario before they go on tea break,